Welcome to Volume 3 of the Chinese Wushu Training Series. This program of the straight sword contains two routines. They are demonstrated by members of the Beijing Wushu team, Zhang Xianming, and the sword champion of China, Li Xia. First of all, let's look at some basic sword techniques. The thrust. At the end of the extension, the sword must line up with the arm. The horizontal chop. It is the wrist that makes the cutting action at the end. The point. Notice carefully how the wrist snaps at the end. The uppercut. The tilt. It is important that the wrist snaps at the last moment. The hang. The chop. The figure 8, where the action is totally in the wrist. The circle. The circle is usually done overhead. Here is the circle done with a body turn. body turn and horizontal chop. Be sure that the sword travels in a horizontal plane. Next, the drop stance and penetrate. Lean back and raise sword. The pull and the low thrust often go together. The leap. The right leg pushes off. The back arches in the air and landing is made on the left foot. Here is the straight sword routine performed by Zhang Xianming. The routine is broken down into 4 sections. Here is the first in slow motion. The first technique is a front slap kick. Stepping back into a body turn. A circle over the head. A figure 8 in the back. A thrust and a horizontal chop. A reverse figure 8 as the feet step together. A circle over the head and the sword is transferred back to the left hand. And here comes the butterfly with a full twist into a split. Notice that he switches the sword back to the left hand in mid-air. The second section. The right leg tucks in to help push the body up. Another circle over the head. A figure 8, a point, reverse figure 8, and a horizontal chop. Here is the same combination from a reversed angle. Let's continue with the rest of the second section. The uppercut. The right leg jumps off and a point in the air. A hang. Another hang and a body turn. Next comes the circle with a body turn. A figure 8, a point, and a thrust. The third section. This section begins with a pull and thrust. and an empty stance. The uppercut. A reverse figure eight. The forward figure eight. A point. A thrust. A point and another thrust. Then a sweep to the left into a split. A circle overhead. A drop stance and penetrate. Next is the lean back and raise the sword. Then another penetrate. And a circle over the head. Here is the last combinations in a reversed angle. The fourth and the final section. A twist from the wrist and a chop towards the back. Then the sword goes back to the front and into a penetrate. The body turn and horizontal chop. A thrust in the front and a balance. Next comes the leap. A circle overhead and a point. Another circle overhead. During the last circle, the sword is changed back to his left hand. Then he steps into an empty stance. The second routine is demonstrated by Li Xia, who is the sword champion of China. Again, the routine is broken down into 4 sections. Here is the first section in slow motion. A circle over the head. Another circle and a horizontal chop. The figure 8. Then the sword tucks in front of the body. Then another overhead circle into the uppercut. Some more figure 8s as she runs forward. And a reverse uppercut. A vertical chop. A hang with a body turn, followed by a leap. And into the split and reverse uppercut. A circle overhead. Then a balance on the right leg with a left snap kick and a backward thrust. The reverse figure 8. And the forward figure 8. Then a thrust that goes straight up. The second section. The second section begins with a chop. Then the sword tucks in the front and a circle overhead. Then the hang. Another hang, and the sword tucks behind the body. A chop and a front kick. A point. The uppercut. The right leg takes off, then a reverse uppercut as she drops into the split. The figure eight and a point. An uppercut. A reverse uppercut. A figure eight, then lean back and raise the sword. The penetrate and into a cross-legged sit. The third section. An uppercut. A horizontal chop. And into the circle with a body turn. A horizontal chop. The figure eight and a vertical chop. A circle overhead. A reverse uppercut. Another circle overhead. And a thrust with the palm side of the hand facing up. A circle overhead. An uppercut. Another uppercut. The figure eight. The chop. Circle overhead. Another chop. Then the figure eight. A thrust towards the back, and the sword flips forward as she moves into the drop stance. The last technique in the third section is a point. The fourth section. The hang with a body turn. Then the right hand tosses the sword up and is caught by the left. Then the aerial cartwheel. Then a circle overhead. The sword is transferred back to the right, a figure eight, and an upward thrust. Another circle overhead, and the sword is changed back to the left hand. And that concludes her routine. Volume 1, Wushu Basic Techniques, contains fundamental training for contemporary Wushu. Basic maneuvers such as strikes, stances, footwork, and complicated aerial kicks and combinations are covered. This is the most essential volume for martial artists of all levels. Changquan, the empty hand routine that is tailored to the individual practitioner. Changquan is the backbone to all other styles of Wushu training. 3 examples are illustrated here, including one given by an 11-year-old athlete. The straight sword was the favorite weapon among the noble class throughout the history of China. The beauty of its fluid movements matches the fantasy of a phoenix flying aloft. The broadsword, characterized by quick, vicious and powerful movements, is perhaps the most popular weapon. Various basic techniques of the broadsword and 2 routines are demonstrated in this program. All basic swings and spins of the cudgel are demonstrated clearly here, as well as complex body maneuvers done in conjunction with cudgel techniques. Lan, Na, Zha are the prerequisites to all other spear moves. The power is focused at the tip, and it is utmost important to have good coordination between the practitioner's body and the spear itself. The spear is often regarded as the king of all weapons. The swings and turns of the 3-section cudgel must be done with great speed. The techniques are reproduced here in slow motion to help the viewers learn this complicated flexible weapon. The 9-section whip mainly consists of coiling and wrapping motions. The various elbow, leg, and neck wraps, as well as other techniques, are clearly demonstrated. The rope dart is perhaps the most difficult weapon to learn, and instructional material for it is equally as hard to find. This program will guide you through this unique weapon step by step. The drunken style must be the most talked about form in the tournament circuit today. Self-defense techniques are hidden within the seemingly drunken motions. Dodges, side steps, and counter-attacks are revealed only to the trained eye. Chinese martial art techniques are often borrowed from the instinctive self-defense abilities of other creatures. The praying mantis style is highlighted by the practitioner's hands, which mimic the devastating pinches of the mantis. The monkey-style cudgel combines the cunningness of the agile monkey with cudgel techniques. Among the different styles of Taiji Quan, Yang style is the most popular. Its continuous and relatively large movements are retained in this 88-step routine, standardized by the State Sports Commission of China. Taiji training also involves its related weaponry. Now the Yang-style Taiji sword is made available for enthusiasts. Xingyi Quan is another internal wushu style. All 5 basic punches, 12 animal postures, and an entire routine are demonstrated in this program. Taiji, Xingyi, and Bagua are the 3 main internal styles. This program takes you through the 8 fundamental palms of Bagua to a complex routine of very swift footwork and torso maneuvers.